And so then, a few months later, we have Murder by Upload. Murder by Upload basically exists because I didn't want Dolchemok tapes to be a fluke. It had taken all that work just to make that one small movie, and I was worried that would be it. That was that one time I got that one movie in the woods done, and then that was it. So I knew that right then I had like 4 actors who wanted to work with me, and I'm just like, I'm not letting this go to waste. I'm writing another script, and we're doing something. Bam. It's a film that I barely remember, honestly, because it came in between 2 films that were much more memorable, but, I was just riding that wave of confidence that the first film gave me, and just, I'm gonna do another one, because if I don't do it now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to. Colin and Holly came back from the Dolchemok tapes, and Rebecca Howland was one of the actors/filmmakers who I had been working with previously, who was helping me produce the Dolchemok tapes before her scheduling conflicts forced her to drop out. And so again, I was trying to come up with a justification for shooting the whole thing on a cheap camcorder, so I came up with the idea of doing something about people who make videos. So on the Dolchemok tapes, I had put myself in the lead role because of the whole found footage thing. It made it seem like it would be that much easier. And at that time, I hadn't been acting a whole lot. I'd acted in high school, but then as I got into college, I got more into behind the camera stuff. But I had so much fun acting in the Dolchemok tapes that I wanted to do more. So I wrote myself into the lead role of Murder by Upload, too. And I didn't really think too much about the fact that since that wasn't a found footage movie, it would be a little bit harder to film myself in the lead role. So yeah, that was the first film where we would put down the camera on a tripod and then just jump in front of it and act out the scene with no one manning the camera. And that continued for a while. There is no one else in this room with me right now as I'm recording this. And, Murder by Upload had its share of conflicts too. I think pretty much everybody got sick at some point, so we had to move back a couple of the dates, but we still got it done before the end of the year 2011. Murder by Upload drew a lot of inspiration from the research project films I did in high school, like The Smoking Bottle. In fact, much like The Smoking Bottle, it was a sort of film noir pastiche where most of it was in black and white, and I wore a trench coat and sunglasses and tried to solve a mystery. And so, while I was in pre-production on Murder by Upload, I tried to get inspiration by watching some clips from the classic neo-noir masterpiece Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And so while I was watching Roger Rabbit clips, I started to think, it'd be really fun to do some kind of film that dealt with wacky old school cartoon tropes. And then I remembered this old article that I saw in the Weekly World News or something years earlier about a man who finds himself slowly turning into a cartoon character, and it just had this ridiculous picture of this construction worker freaking out over his giant white hands, and I was just like, there's a short film there. And it just worked out that I just happened to have a pair of giant white gloves.
Is this some kind of joke?
No.
Roy, why are you wearing those stupid gloves?
I don't know.
So, the Cartoon Man came into being. Dolchemok Tapes and Murder by Upload were films I made largely to gain experience making something. I thought, they were good for what they were, but nothing I absolutely loved. But the whole time I was making The Cartoon Man, I just remember thinking, this is the greatest thing ever. So by this point, our justification for using an old cheap camcorder was I just still couldn't afford a better camera, and so we went forward with this story where I slowly turned into a cartoon character. When I was getting started on Murder by Upload, I was almost thinking that in the next movie I should just step behind the camera and not have to act in it again, but then once I came up with the premise for the Cartoon Man, I was like, I need to play this character. This is going to be so much fun. And by then, the core group was starting to form. I was able to cast this film just with people who'd been in the previous ones. Rebecca Howland was kind of like my de facto assistant director in the early films. I had known her for over a year before I started making my own films, and she had some experience producing herself, and I feel like I ended up always casting her in roles that mirrored our real life friendship, where we'd play coworkers who had a certain back and forth. And then I cast Colin as the villain of the Cartoon Man, mostly because he was the only other male actor I knew at the time, but I honestly feel like a mustache-twirling cartoon villain was the role he was born to play. And as for Allie, a few months before we started the Cartoon Man, she invited me to help out on a web series where she played a really bitchy character, and I immediately knew she was perfect to play Valerie, the Cartoon Man's constantly stressed out girlfriend. So that was our cast, and when I was conceiving the Cartoon Man, I initially thought that the cartoon elements would mostly be practical effects that I'd put together on set. I thought the only real animation would be maybe a couple of starbursty explosions here and there, because that seemed like it was something that would be pretty easy to do. But I shot some test footage just to see how I could color correct and put some of the explosions in, and they were looking pretty good. So I thought, well, what if I did a thing where, like, I pick up a cartoon bomb and throw it? And so I drew a bomb in the paint program and then keyframed it in so it looked like I picked it up and threw it, and I added some motion blur and it looked way better than I expected. And so then I tried putting cartoon eyes in front of my own eyes and keyframing them, and that actually looked pretty good too. So I ended up putting in a lot more animation than I even intended originally. The whole cartoon battle between Roy and Simon at the end was, at the time, just one of the most fun things I ever did, and it took so long to edit, but it was just so cool just going through frame by frame, putting these things together and just watching this whole thing play out. And the whole time I was making the Cartoon Man, I'd go on YouTube and I'd watch clips of old Looney Tunes and some Animaniacs and stuff like that, just to get the rhythm of that sort of wacky cartoon feel just in my head for both my acting and the timing of it all. And I'd see cartoon gags like in like the Roadrunner cartoons and be like, oh, that would be so cool to do, because especially just for that climactic battle scene, I was just figuring out ways to do cartoon gags in live action. My father built a green screen for me that we set up in the living room. It was originally built for the Cartoon Man, although we only ended up using it for a few shots for that first movie, but we got plenty of use out of it as the years went on. So just between that and the cartoon graphics I was able to make and then key into the live action footage, I would just start getting all these ideas. It's like, oh, well, we could do this and that. And it was just one of those films that through every stage of shooting parts of it and editing, I knew this is going to be something really special. And I mean, yeah, it looks crude and low quality looking back, because I didn't have a very high production value back then at all. And the story of the original Cartoon Man, while it was more or less self-contained, there were some loose ends that were left hanging. Like there was this character, Oswald Sherzikian, who we spend the whole movie talking about, and we never actually see him and never definitively solve the mystery of what happened to him. And so by the time I was screening the Cartoon Man for the cast, I already had ideas not just for a sequel, but ideas to make it into a whole trilogy. So in the fall of 2012, we rolled into Return of the Cartoon Man, which just has a lot of great scenes. There's one where we are taking a bunch of figures of speech literally.
Let's begin by addressing the elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in this room?
Oh my gosh, there is! What do you know?
This is the one where Valerie gets to turn into a cartoon. There's an awesome Coyote and Roadrunner style chase scene at the end. The plot's actually kind of convoluted in hindsight and largely just serves to get all the characters from where they were at the end of the first movie to where I wanted them to be for the beginning of the third movie, because throughout the Cartoon Man films we kept talking about the second dimension, this whole animated cartoon world, and I had this whole concept that at the end of the second movie we go into the second dimension and then it ends on a huge cliffhanger, and then the third movie is this whole journey across this cartoon world. And just saying it now, it's like this, I was so ambitious at this point. For someone who was just starting out, I'd really only been making my own films for just about a year at this point, and I was like, yeah, let's go do a thing that takes place in a whole animated world. And I mean, I was young and unknown and felt like I had something to prove, and I guess in a way that's still true, but it was even more true then. the spring of 2013, we went into Journey of the Cartoon Man, the epic conclusion to the epic trilogy. That one was insane. Of the 6 days of shooting, we shot 5 of them almost entirely in front of the green screen, and post-production was a huge ordeal. The film is less than an hour long, but it took me, I think, 3.5 solid months of working 7 days a week to just put in every detail. I would edit together the green screen footage, and then I would have to draw every background, every prop we handled, every bird that flutters across the screen, and just all kinds of other effects. I mean, every single cartoon cliche that popped into my head, I'd be like, oh, we have to use that in there. Oh, I have to do the thing where I have the devil and the angel on my shoulder. It's like, oh, we have to do the thing where we go into a cave and it's just our eyeballs are all that you see. Doing all this stuff was very time consuming. I think the thing that took the longest was there's a scene where we're riding through the desert on a camel and Valerie has a cartoon fan that she's fanning herself with, and it's the most minor thing that you could watch the movie 5 times and not even remember that she had that fan. But I spent 2 solid days just going frame by frame and keyframing that fan so that it was a cartoon thing and not the paper fan we used on set. And then the final battle of Journey of the Cartoon Man was like the biggest, craziest day of shooting of my life up to that point. We had the entire cast of 10 people, which at that point was a lot, in my backyard for the entire day. We were shooting from like maybe a little before noontime all the way up until the sun was starting to go down. It was freezing cold, and yeah, Allie was wearing a dress with her arms completely exposed, so it was unpleasant for a lot of us. At one point, I set up the camera on the tripod and ran to try to get into the shot and knocked the camera right over onto the patio, and somehow it kept on working. Yeah, it was a long, crazy day where I was working pretty much non-stop, and in a way it was a preview of things to come, because on later films, every day would be like that. The whole Cartoon Man series, but especially the third one, were the films where I felt like I really started to find my voice and my style, and I would just be putting together scenes like that amazing montage and some of the other stuff of us traveling through the cartoon world. I would just feel like this is the sort of movie I wanted to make when I was a kid. When I was, 6, 7, 8 years old, picturing movies in my head, it's like I wanted to do it. I feel like I drew so much inspiration from things I was into in my childhood. And I think one of my favorite moments in any of the films I've done, and this is kind of random, but there's a scene in Journey of the Cartoon Man where Roy and Valerie get into this roller coaster like minecart, and then they go through a tunnel, and then they come out of it and they see Oswald Trezekian's castle as lightning strikes, and it's just as it's playing, the music, which is just the royalty-free Incompetech music I found online and stuck under, just really kicks in and becomes dramatic as we're riding forward, and it just seems so epic and grand, and it's just so absurd to think that all this is just Allie and I just kneeling in my living room facing the green screen. But it's just, anytime I watch all 3 Cartoon Man films back to back, which is easy to do because they're not feature length, it just builds from the first one, which is just look, my hands are big and white, and then it just somehow organically, the story progresses into this huge epic adventure. And I kind of feel like the Cartoon Man movies never totally got their due. I mean, at the time I was editing them, I was thinking, this is the greatest thing ever. This is going to change my life once people see this. And I mean, they do actually have some fans, but it's just, there weren't enough people in them compared to later films for us to be able to justify doing any big premiere screenings or anything. But those were some fun films, and I feel like those were what really kind of established what a smoking bottle entertainment movie was, if there is such a thing.
You can do anything! You're cartoon characters! The sky is the limit! The only constraint is your imagination. kitchen. Oh, Piggy. Ah!